Yeah. Now it's like, I went from being a remodeler of houses to being a remodeler of lives. And this is much
Oh,
more.
I love that. I love that. That's a great tagline.
Yeah. This is much more gratifying to me. I love to see lives being transformed and the light coming on and hope and being reborn. And I love to see it's a redemptive work to me, John. When I see a father come back into his children's lives and
Yeah,
for him to become responsible,
had a
that's redemptive to me.
we just had a guy, in SEALs and recovery,
Mhm.
pick a chip up in SEALs recovery, and he just picked up 4 years yesterday.
Yeah. Oh,
And I
praise God.
watched him
That's good.
reemerge in life, and I was his sponsor, and I call him, he was a rookie of the year, then he was the MVP.
Yeah.
Now he had to
Yeah.
pass the torch. We got some good guys in recovery. But the thing
Yeah.
is like, he's thanking me for everything. I said, all I did is make some suggestions, man, and tell you how I did it. You did the work.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
did what was required. You did everything required to get your kid back in your life, back together.
Yeah.
And all I ask is, when you're in a position to do it, you do it for somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good morning, John Hawley from SEALs and Recovery. On to another podcast. As promised, with my coming out podcast, we're going to have non-SEALs on here as well. That will resonate more with the civilian population, not just the military. And as I said earlier in my early podcast, I'm picking up people that I actually super duper respect their recovery. And the story with Rob Weatherhulse is very, very interesting. In 2003, prior to getting out of the Navy, I had started a small construction company, roofing. I went on to build some houses, and I went on to do some government contracting. And like everybody in real estate and development, I lost everything in 2008, 9, and 10. And that's just the way it is. It took me years to recover. But Rob came to me through another roofer that was working for me. And immediately when he showed up, he was a different cat. As Bruce Springsteen says, born to run. This dude is born to run, and you're going to find out what he did after, he fixed some things in his life, got sober, and what he's done. He's like, I can't even keep up with this dude. But he was a different guy. It didn't matter what the pitch was, what the weather was. The guy could run on squares, could outflash everybody. He thought like a drop of water to fix leaks. He's just a remarkable guy. We lost contact, and Rob will go into this around 2006, and he'll tell you why he left Hawley Construction and he went back home. And then as serendipitous occurred in 2020 or 2021, he finds me, he calls me, and he tells me he's sober. And I'm like, well, that's really amazing, because I've been sober for, at that time, 9 years. And then you go on to find out what he's actually done with his sobriety, and he'll explain to that. The dude has written books. He started a ministry. He started sober recovery houses. He developed multi-million-dollar piece of land into recovery and housing, and he's a remarkable guy. And welcome aboard to SEALs and Recovery, Rob.
Thank you, John.
I'm just going to ask you a few questions, short answer them, and then we'll get into your story. We'll go from stem to stern about your childhood, your siblings, when you started to drink, when drinking became a problem, your relationships with children, and where you are now. So question one, Rob, where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, back in 1960. And I was raised in Middletown, Pennsylvania. My dad was a truck driver, and he's also a Korean War veteran. And my mother was a beautician, and she was kind of raised in high society, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, on President Avenue near Franklin and Marshall College, which and my dad was a Korean War veteran. And it was it was a lot like being raised by a cross between General George Patton and Archie Bunker.
Well, he was certainly in that era of men were men, and you sharpen iron with iron.
Yeah, Big Daddy Warbucks. Yeah, he was.
How about brothers and sisters?
I had one brother and 5 sisters, so I'm the youngest of 7. My brother Nelson was a retired Army. He went into the Army. He did 20 years. He was in his 40s, lived down in Georgia, retired a master sergeant in the Army. He lived down in Georgia. He bought a piece of land down there. He had a piece of land in Georgia and Missouri. Had a couple kids, and man, he was huge. He was a big man. He played Army football. He was 6'8", like 340 pounds.
6'8".
He was big. He come home for Christmas, and he stood a head taller than all of us. I mean, he was a mammoth man. Yeah, but I saw him like 3 times in my life. I think I was 2 years old when he went in the military. My mother had me when she was like 43. So, growing up in my house was a bit like growing up in a war zone. There was a whole lot of trauma, a whole lot of violence, a whole lot of, my dad came back from Korea. But, here's something I noticed about, some people that go into the military, if they go in country and they're involved in combat and stuff like that, the PTSD is a rough thing. It's a rough thing to get through. It's a rough thing to overcome. I know that my dad had a real struggle with that. He came back from Korea, but he brought Korea back with him. And, and back in his day, I don't think they had as much available to help.
They had nothing. You just you buried it.
But yeah. So, here you are, they train you, you become a soldier, a combat. He was Army infantry. So he put a year in the front lines in Korea, and that was a rough war from what I hear, the Korean conflict.
Oh, yeah.
But, here he comes home, and he puts a year in the hospital back home because he was wounded. And then, he gets, they tell you, go out, get out and have 2.5 children, a big house in the country, and get a nice job and live the American dream. Well, but that doesn't like take away all the thoughts you had, all the experiences. Being,
I know
Johnny,
this.
you know that way better.
My shipmates and teammates, and
yeah,
it was untreated, and even in my generation, a lot of people didn't believe it was real. It was just a feeling until they could actually prove there was something different about you, which is very interesting. What were your interests growing up? I know you played baseball.
Oh, man,
I know you lived out in the country.
I had a passion for baseball. It was awesome. I really I started playing baseball when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I mean, I went down to we had a youth program at Elizabethtown Park when we lived in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, and I went down. I played in that, and then I played in Little League baseball, and I was a pitcher. A southpaw pitcher, and I got quite good over the years. I had some guys take me under their wing, but there's a lot of trauma and drama in my home life. My dad in and out, and being arrested for drinking, and it just got radical, man. It was radical at home.
Well, it takes a lot. I know what a good dad you are, and I know it's hard. It's hard to It's not hard when you're sober to do the right thing, but when there's chaos and turmoil at home and you're not being looked after, we can go into daddy issues. Certainly I have them. Well, I'll use this as a, you talked about the drinking in your home. When did you pick your first drink up, and what was it? Where were you at?
Well, my first drink, it was beer. And I was 8 years old, and in Little League baseball, I had this group of older guys in town. Since my mom and dad weren't together, he left when I was about 8 years old. So since my mom and dad weren't together, I was always looking toward these older guys. I just needed to feel like affirmed. But it was always the older guys that really weren't good for me.
No, it's not.
After Little League baseball games, we'd win a baseball game, and I had some guys that would go and get some beer, and then we had these woods back behind the Little League baseball field. So we'd go back there and crack a couple, and they were older, and they'd be like, laughing. Yeah, look at this dude, this little dude's drunk, and and I felt 10 foot tall and bulletproof from my first drink. So all of a sudden, all my insecurities deficiencies, not having a dad, feeling incomplete. All of a sudden, I felt like everything was okay. So it became I guess it started off as the Great Escape, so to speak, when I was
Oh, yeah.
young. Yeah.
So how are your, there's, we've talked a lot offline, but these similar things in my family. And what was school like for you? Was it an escape? Was it a good thing? Was it a struggle because you weren't supported at home? I mean, how were your school years as you
Yeah.
remember them prior to graduation?
Uh, I was always a real smart kid. My teachers liked me. I mean, I had a lot of talent. I actually, I loved English. I loved social studies. I still to this day love American history.
Well, you've
Uh,
always been very articulate and very, very clever. That's why
yeah,
when you
yeah,
came to work for me, there's something much different about you than the typical roofer and,
yeah, yeah.
laborer, construction guy. There was a different thing. And you were even back then, you're having problems with addiction. You were still a leader and you still looked out. And,
Mhm.
you're one of those guys, you're like my youngest son. And I love all my kids equally, but
Yeah,
you were very hard to get mad at.
yeah,
You were very hard to get mad at for what you were doing or weren't doing.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
that's nor here or there,
I
but
appreciated your patience back then too, John.
well, we'll get to that and what got you back to PA. So, you're a likable guy, you're a good athlete, you're a good student. What were the options as you got into 10th, 11th, 12th grade? What were you looking at? Were they pushing college? Did you like
Well,
did you
10th,
construction
11th,
again?
12th grade, look, I came up in a broken family. My mother raised 7 children pretty much on her own. My dad was around for quite a few years, but, by the time I was 8 years old, they had separated and he left and nobody in my family went to college. So I was in the place I was raised was Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. So Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, they had roofing companies on every block, and if you weren't going into college, you were going into construction.
Mhm.
So it was kind of like, my parents didn't have like enough money to give me, send me to college, but I got into a field that was really, really feasible, and I made good money from the time I was like, uh, did I got out of school at 17 years old. I graduated in 1978. I got out of school in 17 years old, and I went right to work for a local construction company's spouting roofing company, and that's where I started my roofing career. So I I got very good at it very fast because I was athletic, agile. I was quick to learn. I was always a learner, and I became a foreman there in no time, and it just progressed on and on and on. I
And then
just
you actually, as I remember it, and we'll go back to the drinking in a second. As I remember it, you said you had started your own company and became very big very fast.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Back in 19 what was it? 80 no 1990. I had worked for several different roofing companies out throughout the years, and I said, you know what, I can do this like with my eyes closed now. I mean,
Yeah.
I have this down to a science, and I'm like, I had just got married to my first wife, Mary, and you know, I was very ambitious. I was trying to, wanted to build a family. And so we started, this roofing company, Weatherland Home Improvements. And I started off with a beat up pickup truck and out of a garage. And I made up a couple handmade yard signs. I mean, it was really, really generic, brother. But here in like 2 to 3 years, we every year we just increased. I bought more trucks, added on more crews, and in 7 years' time, I went from maybe $100,000 a year in sales to about 1.5 million in sales and roofing.
But I know we
And,
talked about this too, and you witnessed it with my company, was bigger isn't always
no,
better.
it's not necessarily better because then
No.
you get yourself out there. You have a demand, so you're hiring people, and when your name is on it, the workmanship has to reflect your name. The people have to reflect your name. And it's really hard to do that, especially in roofing and construction, because I don't know what, man, they just attracts alcoholics, bro.
Well, you were a functioning alcoholic, as was I. And the thing is I made sure my work was done, and you did as well. You just don't get that quality, even from non-alcoholics, to get the shit done. The thing's got to be buttoned up for the night. But there's got to be a tarp on it. The job site's got to clean up. You got to check out the customer, and it just it doesn't happen. I mean, you know the control I lost in my company. I mean, I can't even. I don't even think about how many tools have been stolen from me. And,
oh my,
gas cards
same
and
thing happened to me,
transits and concrete saws, and you left, I still got bigger and bigger, and it just until it fell apart, until banknotes were being called. So you went on to do with Mary. You how was your drinking? When did it pick up? Did it pick up after high school? Were you functioning? What was going on?
Okay.
And yours, I don't know what. All right. I don't know what at the end. I know what some of the things at the end, but at the beginning, drugs weren't part of your problem.
No.
Right.
I just started drinking like at a very young age, and I definitely got. I would say I was pretty much at full blown alcoholism at 12, 13 years old. I mean, I was drinking heavily at 12, 13. I mean, every weekend, we'd disappear and go out to go to the river. We have the Susquehanna River up here, lots of places to party. They have boats and go out in the islands out there, have keg parties on the weekends and all that crazy stuff. But like when I was like 17, 18 years old, and I just got out of school, I met a girl, and that goes into my daughter, one of my daughters that died. My drinking was out of control, but I got in a relationship with this young lady, and I was with her for like 2-3 years. And here's where I almost went into the military, John. It's a really, really funny, well, not funny story, tragic, but funny. We were together for like 3 years, and she got pregnant, and we had a daughter, and her name was Chrissy. And I said, you know what? I'm out of control. I got to get my life together. I'm drinking way too heavy. I think I need some discipline in my life. Since I didn't have a dad around, I thought, you know what? I'll just go. I'll go in the Army, like my brother Nelson did. It helped him. He ended up getting his act together, and he went on to live a good life. I thought, well, that's what's missing in my life, the discipline. So I went and got I went in to see an Army recruiter in Elizabethtown. And we had a daughter, and I said, I'll go into basic training. And when I get out of basic training, wherever they're going to station me, then we'll get together and we'll have a wedding right after I get married. And lo and behold, my fiance at that time, who I had the daughter with, she went into the recruiter's office with me. I went and took my civil service test. Came right up to like the week before I was supposed to go take my oath and be shipped off. I get a phone call from one of my fiance's girlfriends, who really liked me, who respected me, and she said, Rob, she says, I got to tell you something. Now, this is going to blow your mind. Your fiance is sleeping with your Army recruiter. And I said, what? I said, you have got to be kidding me, yo. And so, unfortunately, that really,
Rob, that's a blessing in disguise.
that blew my mind. I didn't go into the Army.
You dodged that bullet.
Yeah, I didn't go into the Army. From what I hear, we broke up right immediately. I couldn't believe that happened to me. It really left a bad taste in my mouth for, I broke it off with her. We still had a daughter and everything. She ended up marrying this dude, and like 9 months, I hear they beat the crap out of her, and they ended up divorced in a year. So,
You
you
dodged
know,
the
and
bullet. You got a daughter out of it. That was great,
yeah,
but you
yeah,
dodged the bullet,
yeah,
brother.
yeah. Well, my
Even
daughter,
then,
Kristen,
even then, God was looking out for you.
yeah,
You just didn't know
he
it.
was
You
always
didn't
looking
know
out
it.
for
You
me, man. Yeah,
got
yeah,
to turn it
yeah.
into gratitude.
Yeah, well, that was my first, you know, experience of trying to get my act together and trying to take the
So
right
you
course.
knew.
Yeah, yeah,
You're a
yeah,
smart guy. You knew you had to get a left and right flank to
yeah,
kind of get
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
back on the, or some guardrails up, as they say
Yeah,
now, to get you back on the highway.
yeah, yeah. But you know, I mean, I was kind of left trying to figure life out, John. Um, I was kind of left, you know, my mother did the best she could, but you know, to be honest with you, it takes a man to raise a man. You know, I mean, it takes men to raise men.
And we had
And
no instruction guide.
yeah, and you know, and uh, you know, after that, my fiance got married to this army recruiter. I broke it off with her, and you know, I basically here's where I did something like really wild is you know, whenever she got married, you know, I don't think I was ever prepared emotionally for that kind of betrayal, devastation, and anything. So I got this wise idea that I was going to put a backpack on my back and I was going to hitchhike to Fort Lauderdale, Florida,
Mm-hmm.
because I had a sister that lived in Miramar.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband ran a construction company down there. He built houses. So I thought, yeah, I'll just go to Florida. I don't need this. I don't have anything holding me here. You know, my family split up. You know, my dad and mom, as far as I'm concerned, the chaos and the mayhem, and you know, and then the betrayal from my girlfriend or my fiance, and I didn't have any reason to really stay in Pennsylvania. So, you know, I put on a backpack, Walkman stereo, $1,000 in my pocket. Next thing you know, 2 days later, I'm drinking Mai Tais on Fort Lauderdale Beach and trying to figure out what life's all about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, it was just like you know, I was that kind of fly by the seat of my pants kind of guy back then. It was like, okay, you know, if I don't like what's going on in my life, you know, at this point in time, I guess I kind of had that, you know, nomadic spirit where you know, I'm gonna go someplace and I'm gonna change my life, you know. But you know, even then, it was like, okay, I didn't realize you take yourself with you, man. You take yourself with you, and when you take yourself with you, you take all those all those hurts, those hangups, your addiction, your alcoholism. You
Your
take it with you.
insecurities, your
Yeah,
fear, all of it comes with you.
yeah, yeah. And then you know, I mean, I was trying to run away from all of the pain of my childhood and you know the betrayal and stuff like that. So I you know, here I was in my 20s and I had a boatload of hurt, man, and I was just trying to you know, what better place to drink it away than Fort Lauderdale, Florida, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I went down there. I spent like 5 years from 82 to 87 on a what I would like to refer to as a walkabout. You know, all my friends were back home. They were getting married and you know, either going to college or getting married and building houses and raising children. And, you know, here I had like, I guess I came back to Pennsylvania. My mom had gotten ill in 2000. Well, no, it was yeah, it was from 82 to 87. I was down there. So at 1987, my mom got
Mm-hmm.
she got sick. So I came back to Pennsylvania because she was ill. And I hooked up again with the local roofing company. And it took me like 2 weeks. They put me as foreman there because, you know, I really knew what I was doing. And I worked for them for like another, well, I guess it would have been for like 4 years until I got married and I met my wife, who was a childhood sweetheart of mine, and she moved away when I was like 17 during the 3 Mile Island incident up here in
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania. You could actually see the towers from our house, you know.
Wow.
So it was pretty wild, you know.
And that's Mary.
Yeah, Mary. Yeah, Mary.
You know what's very
That's who
interesting
I
about
married. So she was
it's
my
very
childhood.
interesting about roofing and drinking. So you know, I used to work a lot of different jobs. I did a lot of
Yeah.
fishing and clamming growing up. I said that, but one of the jobs I worked on for a while, the guy needed help. He had a roofing company. It was commercial roofing. It was hot
Mhm.
tar,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
kicking out rolls, right? 3-ply and 2-ply and 4-ply
Mhm.
stuff. And I was like, and this from being a roofer, like I was a kid, but I had my license, so that was valuable.
Yeah.
None of these
Yeah.
guys had their licenses.
You get big dollars just for having a license in there.
Exactly, and I was responsible. I wasn't gonna rip the company off. I'd break
Yeah.
up kits, the tar kits, and
Yeah.
I learned how to flash. I could kick out a roll and cut it a little bit. I wasn't strong enough to swing the mop head. But I remember these guys, man. These guys so this was probably 81, 82. I did this stuff on and off to help out this company. They were all Vietnam vets.
Yeah.
And I remember
Yeah.
this guy and they drank with this hot tar roofing on Long Island. They drank all day long.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Tall boy Schaefer beers. I'm like, I'm
120
an athlete.
degree
Yeah,
heat.
I'm an athlete. I'm like, how are you doing it? I remember this guy's red. If you know about hot tar roofing, you have a mop head with one mop. This guy would be swinging double mop heads.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm like, this guy is
Oh
he's drinking a case of beer a day
yeah.
on this.
Yeah.
And then I remember at lunch, they were all vets, and at lunch, all as they ever did is would get on each other's shit that you didn't do shit in Vietnam. You didn't do shit. You were a
Oh
rear echelon MF.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then lunch would be over. They'd finish up their beer and whatever they stuffed down their gullet and right back to this hot
Oh
tar roof.
yeah.
And I'm like, this guy's
Oh dude,
crazy.
you're definitely a special breed, brother.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Definitely
I just could not believe it. The guys that were sober, of course, were me and the guy running the kettle down there, throwing the kits in, because you could start kettle fires in a second
Yeah.
with that hot tar. I mean, it was
Oh
like
yeah.
that
Oh
was my
yeah.
introduction to roofing, and I'm like,
Yep.
I remember finally at the end of working on it after a summer, I could flash stuff,
Mhm. Yep.
flash supply on,
Yep.
and I wouldn't get any of the tar on me
Yeah. Oh
because
man.
you start
How
flashing,
you do
it's
that?
all over the place.
Oh dude, that's the look, there's just, if you really want to have like a nice clean clothes and stuff like that, don't go into roofing. Just
Right.
don't do it.
But that
Just
was
don't.
my goal. I learned from a really good guy. That's all this guy did was he made a mint.
Yeah.
All he did was flashing.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was neat as a pin. You couldn't
Yeah.
tell he was even a roofer at the end of the day. He was so good. But that was
Wow.
astounding. My drinking, to watch these guys drink all day long in this weather, and I'm just like scared shitless of the guys. It was, they just Vietnam ended, I don't know, whatever, 6 or 7 years ago, and they're
Yeah.
all hardcore guys,
Mhm. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
all right.
I definitely worked with a lot of hardcore roofers over the years. I mean, I guess I kind of gravitated to, I came out of the era where you worked hard and you played hard, and that's the way we rolled.
Did you bang nails when did they start coming out with roofing guns?
Well, I'd say I was maybe 8 years into a 35-year career.
Right.
Whenever,
Yeah.
that they came out with new roofing guns, and at first I was kind of like, why you want to do that? I can nail almost as fast as you can go with a gun. So
yeah, but then at the end of the day, you ran
yeah,
around
at the end of the day,
gun, right?
once I caught on to that, I could run that thing like an M16.
And I'm telling you, when Rob worked for me, he would hold everybody to their standards at work, and he said, "We're going to run on 10 square today, or whatever it was. We're running 10 square on." Well, I can remember days out there where we had the headlights of the truck on to finish up what you told the guys were going to do.
Yep. Good old days.
Now by the time I was done, you just paid, illegal immigrants, per square, that whole industry, as Rob, you're out of it, but you still have ties to it. It's just, the whole thing has changed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's, I'll be honest with you. It's a young man's ball game.
Yeah. So now you've met Mary, and I digressed, but it was fun, little digression, little trip down memory lane. But so you meet Mary, you have the one kid from the previous fiance, and how are things going with Mary? When did she get pregnant? How was your drinking and everything else?
Okay, well, when here's the funny part is whenever I met Mary, I had come back from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I came back, and I got a head full of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and I'm living in a small country town like E-Town, PA, Elizabethtown, PA. And I'm like, no, this isn't going to work, because I was exposed to all kinds of stuff down there. And I think, you know what? I got to do something about it. So that was my first attempt well, actually it was successful. My first rehab was in 1980. Yeah, 1989, like 6 months after I got back from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Or no, 2 years after I got back from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Right.
Ended up going to rehab in 89.
For alcohol?
Yeah, for alcohol. Yeah.
Who's saying you? Yourself or your wife?
No, we weren't even married yet. I hadn't even run into her yet.
Okay.
That was between 87 when I got back from Fort Lauderdale.
My apologies.
And in 1990. So it might have been 88. I went into rehab. I had like 2 years clean and sober.
What was your bottom? Rob, what was your bottom getting into that rehab? Your first
bottom getting into that rehab was
for people that are listening to this podcast that don't know about alcoholism. Hopefully, you're learning a little thing. Yeah. Your bottom is your lowest point where you're ready to surrender, get a white chip in AA or whatever you're surrendering to, and you go into your rehab. And as I like to say, people get off at different floors. If it's a skyscraper and you're heading down, people get off on different floors. I consider myself a shallow bottom drunk, and I do consider Rob this because he's a functioning guy, but people are still trying to drill through the basement to get to the next floor to really burn their life down, aren't they?
That's really sad too, but that's so
you
true.
Can't help it unless they want to help themselves.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy thing about alcoholism is you think that, you're going through so much stuff and you got this trauma, you got this depression, and you got
bills. You have bills. You got a family.
And crazy us, we're thinking that I'm gonna drink to get through this depression, so I'm gonna like ingest more of a depressant.
It makes perfect sense to an alcoholic.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, but so we're really not educated on all that. While you're in it, but thank God that we get past that eventually. I mean, hopefully we do. But no, yeah. So here I am. I went through rehab, 2 years sober. I'm doing really well. I had started Weatherland Home Improvements right before I had met Mary again. She lived in Chincoteague, Virginia.
Oh, sure.
Out on the island. Yeah. And she had come back. Her father was a siding installer for a company that I used to work for. So she had come back because her father wasn't doing too well. So she came back, and I ran into her, and I was like, wow, it's like, okay, here we go. I haven't seen you in like 15 years, but you're still the girl I was sweet on back then. So, I like 6 months later, I asked her to marry me. We got married. We started I had this business going, but it just took off. It took off like a rocket in like 7 years time. I was making six figures. I bought the beautiful house out in the country, and I was doing my thing, living the American dream. And we ended up having 3 sons, and I have 3 sons, Jacob, right, Joshua, and Jonathan, 2 years apart, every one of them. Yeah. And, fast forward, I was, what's really going to blow your mind here is that everything that happened to me with my wife, my first wife, Mary, happened to me in sobriety. I got sober in 1990.
Well, you know what they say, Rob, alcoholism is just a symptom, brother.
That's right.
Air quotes, and it's damn true.
Yeah. I got sober in 1990, and I was sober till the year 2000. And in the year 2000, we had just bought a house, 1997. We bought a beautiful stone rancher, 2.25 acre wooded lot, sunken living room, fireplace. It was really, really gorgeous. We had the business was going really well, and then we ended up moving out of town. And that year is when I went from residential roofing into commercial.
Then you start getting into your net 30s, your net 45s, and your net 60s, and you start hawking stuff to make payroll.
Yeah, and then so I got I got a roof, a commercial roof, yeah, it was a pretty good size roof for the company that I had. It was like $110,000 roof. And we were in the middle of doing this roof, and it was a restoration company had gotten, I had contracted through this restoration company that I had done work for years. I mean, I was getting like $250,000 worth of business from them a year. And, I had no reason to think that there was any kind of trouble with that company whatsoever. So we got like halfway through the job, and I'm supposed to get a draw from this company halfway into the job. So I had put out like $40,000 in material. Well, about $28,000 in material, about $30,000 in labor. So I'm like over 50 grand into this already. And I give the owner of the company a call, and I'm like, hey, we're at the halfway point here. I have to pay my suppliers off, and I have to, get.
What did he say? Get in line?
No, he didn't return my call, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So 2 weeks later, I tried calling him again, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go see him because you're not calling me back. So I go over to this place, Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and I go up to, for anonymity's sake, I won't use the company's name, but I go up to knock on the door, and the door's padlocked, and it has notice of bankruptcy on the window, notice of bankruptcy sign. I was $60,000 out, and at that point in time in my career, I could afford to lose $6,000, but I couldn't afford to lose $60,000.
Same thing happened to me. On a different scale.
And, I mean, when I saw that sign on the door, I had built this thing. I had worked so hard. We just bought this house. I had $30,000 worth of material debt and, and all this stuff. And, my heart hit my shoes, brother. I mean, I was like, I can't even believe this is happening. So I finally get a lawyer. I try and go after these guys. Back then, the bankruptcy law was that if you file bankruptcy, 9 months later, if you'd have done it, they would have went back. They changed the law that that you have a year you can go back to go after your money. Well, lo and behold, we ended up losing all that capital, so that put me in a really bad financial situation, and I ended up. Paying lawyers to go after money. So
I get it.
50,000 to 60,000. And then the same year when I bought my property, I bought two different properties, a house and a half-acre lot next door, because I planned on building a warehouse on that lot. So, so what happens is we go to, I end up trying to sell the property next door so I could pay off my debt, and just keep on rolling. So the guy who buys it from me starts digging out, excavating his basement. He's going to build a house on that property. And lo and behold, I find out that my septic drain field is running into his basement that he's excavating. So they're actually sold me as two separate properties, but they had an easement. You're not allowed to sell it as two separate properties if there's the easement going on to the other property, especially a septic drain field. But we discovered that. So now I only paying a lawyer to go after my business woes. Now I have to go after the former owner that I bought the house from to try and get him to put this septic drain field in. So there's another $8,000 in lawyers. So, finally it got just overwhelming. I had to fold. I folded up. And
what year was that?
That would have been 2000. Yeah, it would have been 2000. Yeah.
I had a similar thing. I went on, and it was after you went back to Pennsylvania. I went on to big commercial jobs. Were you around when I opened a cabinet shop? And
yeah, I was there right at
with
the
Ed,
end there when you started to with yeah.
Yeah. So, I got a big commercial job, and it was a horrible contract I signed. I'd never sign it to this day. And, and this guy had I should have did the research on the company. This guy had a a reputation of jamming up subs because he knows the subs
Yep.
needed the money.
Yep.
That's pretty much what he did to me. I had a line. It was 2007, and I had a line of credit with one of the banks who I still do business with, and I had some money in that bank. And this guy, what sunk me was about 13 grand.
Yeah.
And at that time, he's it was a sub who didn't do a good job, and
Yeah.
the guy wouldn't come back and fix it. And a painter, he hired a painter to finish out the what I did for trim work and the cabinetry and stuff and stain and crap like that. But in concert was 2008 was rolling up. This guy was refusing to pay me. I put a lien on his property. I had to settle for pennies on a dollar. When that was going on, the bank started calling my lines of credit. At that time, I had a bunch of money in my bank to pay the line of credit, right? And they're demanding the whole thing. And thank God I had a person at the bank call me and say, "Hey, look, take your money out of this bank right now because they're gonna just transfer your cash, your family cash, to pay this line of credit off."
Yep. Oh,
So
yeah.
I think at that time I had burned up like $30,000 in my line of credit to cover. That wasn't the only job I was going on.
Yeah.
So thankfully I got my money out, so that I had some liquidity. Then they started calling my note, and I said, I haven't missed a payment. Well, Mr. Hawley, we're calling notes on the people that can pay it. I said, that makes total sense. You're gonna sink me.
Yeah, that makes no sense at all. But
they forced me to fold. I mean, I threatened bankruptcy. I got halfway down the road, and they backed off on it. And at the end of the day, they wrote it off. It crushed me for years, but it was that synchronicity of a couple things happening. And that prime who hired me as a sub, he had no intention of paying me.
Yeah.
What's going on?
It can be a real. I mean, it can be. It's a rough racket all the way around, financially, and the employee structure of the people that you hire in that field.
Oh my God,
man,
it is terrible. I mean, we can go talk for an hour about the people that were in my company when you were trying to manage us, the Ernies and Everett out there doing shit, selling my stuff. I mean, it just Richie. I mean, falling asleep on jobs, customers calling me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. I learned a lot from it.
I know. Yeah. Well, we all learned a lot from it. I mean, I learned some tough lessons through my life, a lot of them.
But unfortunately, besides the relationship, they're all written in money too.
Right? Yeah, get back up and keep going. I mean, life is peaked. It's not all one smooth ride uphill. It's peaks and valleys, and I've been through many a peak and valley. Believe me.
So 2000, you're done. Are you using again or drinking at 2000?
No.
When did you
2000 and
shit hits the fan business wise. You're done with it. You're folding it.
When the business folded, I started working for a modular home set company. I went to work for them, and we're going anywhere from up in Connecticut to South Carolina. I'm up at 2:00 in the morning, leaving for Long Island, New York, or down Newport News, Virginia, and I'd leave on a Monday morning at 2:00 in the morning, and I wouldn't come home until 10:00 on a Sunday night or on a Saturday night. And then I had like one day, and my wife wanted me to get up and go to church and do the family thing, and I'm like cross-eyed. I got 120 hours in that week. So, I'm doing that. I'm like, I'm paying the bills, right? Well, you know what? My kids and my family deserved a lot better than that, but I didn't understand that then. I thought, a man's job was just to pay his bills and take care of his family. And that's kind of like that's what I interpreted manhood out of the lens that I had grown up in.
That's what you were taught.
Yeah. I was just taught, you just suck it up and you move forward and you do whatever's necessary. So I took a job that I was never home, and here my kids were growing up. And, I was missing a lot. I was missing a lot because I was working all the time. And, I in hindsight, that took its toll on my marriage. And we ended up separating. I guess it was 2002, we ended up separating. And in 2002, we separated, and I picked up a drink after 10 years.
Wow, I did not know this. I didn't know
I
you
had
had 10 years.
10
Were you going to
years.
meetings at all, or you're just
Oh
doing
yeah, I
dry
was
drunk?
going to meeting. I was going to
Wow.
meeting for a good 9 years, and and then I got busy with business and family and all that other stuff. And I'll be quite honest with you, Johnny. I got to the point where I thought, I had arrived. I didn't need to go to meetings. But then I was doing the church thing, and be honest with you, today in my life, I have to have both. I have to have both.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, I know that today. I mean, I need both. And I've been faithful, this go around, 13 years. I've surpassed out what many years I had before. But, I just remember that when my wife and I separated, here I was, all of a sudden, I got to pay $1,200 a month in child support, and I can't even go home to my family, and then I'm, and now I'm living like sleeping upside down in the back of a pickup truck all night long, waking up in parts unknown, working, setting houses and coming home. And it was a really, really nomadic, lonely life I was living. And it was really depressing. I mean, I slipped into depression. And when I slipped into depression, I started drinking. And when I started drinking, when I come home on the weekends and didn't have my family come home to, I was, I ended up getting like 3 DUIs in 2 years.
That's pretty strong.
It was the same.
You're very focused.
It was the same cop. Yeah. I mean, I was definitely consistent. It was,
yeah.
It was the same
Left
cop.
it all on the field.
Well, I mean, it was like, okay, we had a local tavern called the End Zone, a sports bar in town. And I would go in there, when we roll in on Friday nights and then I'd go and close down the bar and then hop in my truck and try to drive home. And it's like, okay, well, after the first time you think you'd learn your lesson, but 3 years and 3 DUIs later, I was on parole and for my DUIs, and things were getting bad. They were just getting bad between my ex-wife and I. And she, one time that I went to jail, she sent me divorce papers in a jail cell. And that was really crushing to me. And that's pretty much when I got out of jail that time, that's when we got into that big argument. And I hopped a bus to Norfolk, Virginia.
Why did you go to Norfolk?
I have no idea, brother. I'll be honest with you. I was not, there was nothing rational about my life then. I mean, that's the insanity.
Oh yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
In there.
I mean, I had, if I, it was easy for me to try to, it was easy for me to try and drink the memories away. It was easy for me to do that. And it was horrible. It was just horrible. But, I kind of realized that, once she sent me divorce papers that, hey, this isn't going to work out. My family's not going to work out, so I had felt like, I had worked all those years and I just watched everything fall apart. And, I was like, man, I did all this work and here I am, I went from a $1.5 million annual business to being,
Sober.
broke in prison and getting divorce papers.
And
I'm
for
like,
the majority of the time you were sober.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't pick up again until we separated and I knew we weren't getting back together. And the depression was just like, for me, it was overwhelming. I mean, I wasn't really emotionally mature back then, I guess, enough to handle something like that. But anyhow, it was just a devastating time in life,
So you get to Norfolk.
Yep. So I get to Norfolk and I hop off the bus and I end up taking another bus into Virginia Beach, and I go into Virginia Beach at a 7-Eleven, and I'm standing out in front of a 7-Eleven. Here comes this roofing truck pulling in there. He's got all the gear on there. I thought, boy, that looks familiar. I need to talk to that guy. So I was in Virginia Beach approximately 2 days, and I got a roofing job. So, so I got a job working for James Marrow, who was the Indian guy that I worked for. Whenever I met you, we were working through Everett, but I was working for James. And I started doing roofing for him, and I was doing really well. I ended up getting a place, my own place, and things were kind of difficult. But I when I left Virginia, here's the thing: when I left Pennsylvania, I was on parole, so I broke my parole when I left.
Right. Yeah. I later found that out and convinced you to go back.
Yeah, but I broke my parole, but that's kind of like that was I could see myself repeating what happened to me back in the 90s, when my fiance we had that fallout. So my life had been just like, be honest with you, up to that point, it is like a Greek tragedy, brother. I mean, it was like a Greek tragedy. There was a lot of.
Oh, Rob, you talked about, we talked about your childhood. You didn't have any tools, man.
No,
I didn't. You had no role models. You essentially fended for yourself. You did the best you can, and there's no surprise we end up where we are.
Yeah. But I think. Well, I know my work ethic has always been my saving grace.
Of course.
I was always able to rise up to most any challenge, whatever it was, because I always, and that's the one thing that I'm gonna have to always thank you for, John, is you helped me to believe in myself again.
You're an easy guy to believe in, Rob, with all your warts and scabs, and that's a metaphor.
Yeah.
There is, you could see there was a man below that deeply cared, because I remember Mary came down to visit. With the kids. We went swimming in our pool, and there was still something there. And I don't want to piss your new wife off, but there was something, there was some redeeming stuff going on that I recognized even clearer, that this guy needs to go back and fix his shit.
And, and that was really heartbreaking for me too. Even like this, when the first time that I went back was after my dad had a heart attack, and my mom had a stroke, and she was developing dementia the first time I went back. So, I went back, and when I went back, of course, broke parole. And when I had left the first time to try and come back, and it was really hard thing for me to do, brother, was to pack up and go, because I felt safe, I mean, all that word that, when I was homeless, you took me in, well, you were that for me at that time, John, and I will always appreciate that, man, more than you ever know.
It was easy, man.
Yeah, but I went back to Pennsylvania, and I thought, I'm never gonna be free unless I go face this.
So I remember the morning I said, you need to go. I gave you some money, and you need to go. I remember it was at the house in Norfolk.
Yep. Yeah.
Drug addict Ernie was living in there, and the guy that was crack or putting needles in his body. I don't know what he was doing. We went through that house after you all moved out, and your stuff was fine. It was just craziness. But no, I distinctly remember that morning. I'm like, hey man, you just got to go do this thing, man. If you want to come back, there'll be a job for you, but you got to go do this, man.
But
you did it, and you did it, and you kept in touch, and you said, I got to go to jail and do this, that, and the other thing, and then you did it.
Well, I did. I went back, and then I turned myself in, and I thought, well, they'll give me parole. Well, they didn't give me parole. They gave me a year in Lancaster County Prison, and I did a year in Lancaster County Prison, and when I did the year in Lancaster County Prison, man, it changed me. I mean, be honest with you, a lot of people might think this sounds crazy. That's the best thing that ever happened to me. It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
I do not doubt this. It takes, I mean, believe me, we could talk about some stuff I'm going through when you get here later on. But my point is sometimes it takes absolutely catastrophic things to happen in your life to come out the better side. And it doesn't happen right away. You don't realize it.
No. It was definitely a gradual awakening. But, I mean, I had, God slowed my chaos in my life down to the point where I could hear him. I mean, I knew that there was, that there was more meaning to life than what I had experienced up to that point. I knew it. I knew God was there. I knew he was protecting me all those years. I just didn't quite understand. Okay, how am I supposed to make sense out of all this? How am I supposed to move forward with my life? How am I supposed to look back over, how do you make something good out of something devastating, And I had gone through so much ups and downs and turmoil that, I just cried out to God. I mean, I was going to AA. I tried AA, tried church, and everything that I tried, it would work for a while. But then it was like, okay, am I going to go on the rest of my life like this? Am I going to go on the rest of my life like this? Or is there a bigger meaning and a bigger purpose behind this? And I believe that's when God met me at my point of need, and certainly, AA has been like the foundation of my recovery. It certainly has. I have had so many wonderful people come alongside me in that program, and just inspire me, encourage me, just tell and doing the 12 steps. I mean, the 12 steps is imperative. I mean, I knew God was there, but I didn't know he was part of my life, and step one, I had to surrender totally. I had to totally surrender and say, my life is absolutely unmanageable.
You got to get step one perfect.
It was. I mean, I had to come to the point where it's like, it's impossible for me to ever drink safely. I'll never be able to.
I know that about myself.
I'll never be able, well, yeah, but I mean, stubborn me for years with the the tough guy roofer mentality. I didn't think anything could beat me. And then, but I look at, all I got to do is, okay, if you don't think you don't think you're an alcoholic, look at your track record. Just look back over your life and just see.
I always say this to people. Dude, I say this all the time. Look what got you here.
Yeah.
If you have any temptation to go out and do whatever you want to do, go out and experimenting again. Look at what got you in the seat.
Yeah, that's right.
That's all you need to do. I mean, it's baffling.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's interesting. So, my SEALs in Recovery is centered around AA steps and traditions, and that's fine. And we picked the format because we go to AA, but the thing is, there's rules, there's suggestions. Okay, there's a framework, and it's the military has framework, so it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Am I a big book thumper? No. I know the important pages. Am I a step guy? I did my steps. I take an inventory every day. I know the traditions, but when there's a lot of stigmatisms attached to AA, and before I immersed myself in it, I went to my first meeting. I needed help. I hit a bottom, and I went and picked up a white ship, and God, I'm one ship wonder. And that's just because I was done. I was done. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. We hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But I tell people, I said, go for the stuff after the preamble, after whatever dumb prayer we say. Go for the shares, the literature, the dialogue, and then you pass the basket around. You go through any AA related announcements, and you can check out whatever prayer you do. But the meat of the program is the shares and what's in between that.
Oh yeah.
And some people have a issue with the God thing. We could talk all day about that. I'm not gonna. I don't take people's inventory anymore. But there's something about this program and sobriety that absolutely works. You can call it what you want, but the camaraderie that exists between other alcoholics that have been through some things that you could talk about is the nexus of of getting well. I got a guy just got out of rehab. He's a great guy. He's not real keen on the civilian AA stuff because he's amongst SEALs and he's comfortable and he could share without feeling bad.
Sure.
It might be enough for him. It might be. I said, as long as you're working on your sobriety on a daily basis and you understand that your sobriety's got to come first because the shit's going to hit the fan if it doesn't, you're back to where you were with your wife, with your employment and everything else if you start drinking. As long as you put that sobriety first and stay connected, and I say connection is protection, and I believe that is true, Rob. Whether it's AA, whether it's church, and as long as you're putting yourself around people that you want something from in a positive manner, I really think folks have a shot. You know, I really do.
Yeah. That's a really, really good point, John. I mean, you know, AA is AA. I have some friends of mine that are really old school, you know, and you can't bring up the God thing in there. And I have other people that, you know, as far as I'm concerned, from my perspective, okay, I'm a huge advocate for faith in the recovery community. I'm a huge advocate for recovery in the faith community. So I believe that this is an equal opportunity way out, you know?
No, I agree. And I promote, you want to go to smart recovery, you want to go to clergy, you want to go to your clinician. I've said this 100 times. As long as it works for you and you're getting healthy and you're seeing some results and you're getting some serenity at some part in your life.
Yeah, as long as your life is starting to gain traction, you're making some progress and there's meaning, purpose, and direction for why you're doing what you're doing, you're on a better path.
We have like an in-briefing, a new guy brief on SEALs and recovery. It's on our website, and it's cool for the new guys. But one of the things I tell the guys when they're first immersing themselves in, if they want to go the A route, is this is not Well People's Anonymous.
Yeah, amen to that.
Take what you need and leave the rest behind, because there is some absolutely batshit crazy people in AA. But as my brother's got long-term sobriety, is like, at least they're not drinking, and maybe they will eventually find their way. Because I'm like you, I not only need a faith-based program outside of AA, I got to go see a shrink every week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. I'll freely admit that. You know, I'm not the only team guy that goes to see a shrink every week, you know, dealing with stuff. But my point is, really cool. It's a trifecta. I mean, I need it all, man.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, you know, if you look at, I mean, I can't even imagine what you went through as a Navy SEAL. I mean, and some of the things that
it's relative, Rob. It is relative because that's the pain. You know what you went through, and it's as important and as painful of anything I went through, or my friends went through, or another civilian A. This is what we know is pain.
Sure. Yeah. I certainly had years that I was quite familiar with pain. That's for sure. You know. From young coming up for a lot of years, there was a lot of devastation in my life. But then, you know, like I was saying, at that point in time, when I went to prison for that year, you know, something happened to me in there, you know, and I wrote, you know, I want to stay in context. You know, I want to be respectful and stay in context, but
you can say whatever you want, brother.
Well, so something happened to me in there, John.
It's fine. Dude, this is your story.
Yeah.
This is what makes this great, this podcast. I want to hear it all, man.
Okay.
I don't want to hear one perspective.
Well, okay. When I was in jail, I had totally gotten to that was my bottom. I mean, I had never been that low in my life. I looked over my life and I was like, you know, how could I have gotten married, started a business, I bought a house, had 3 wonderful children. I was thriving for years. And all of a sudden, I am sitting in a prison cell. And I get divorce papers from my wife. And I looked at my life as a whole, and I was like, you know, how can you go from there to here?
You know how, Rob? And we know this as alcoholics. Alcoholism does not discern over tax brackets, over gender, over ethnicity, nationality. Right. It does not care.
But you know, it was the
only thing is, if you have a bunch of money, it might take a little longer to hit a bottom.
Yeah. It may.
You're prolonging. But no, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
You sit there like, how could I have done this shit?
Yeah. And I was quite, filled with grief, anxiety, shame.
Were you angry or angry at yourself?
Well, at
You
first,
never played the
I
victim
was
because you've
angry,
always.
and then I finally came to a point. I had a year to think about it. So believe me, you have a lot of time to think. And when you're in there, I was in there for a year, and some in a lot of respects, I started manning up and taking ownership. And saying, hey, nobody told me to get behind the wheel of that vehicle and drive when I was drinking.
Oh my God. You hear people in AA and new AA, they got to go, they got to do the white sheet stuff. They got to go there and get your sheets signed like 5 million stuff. They're still blaming the cop.
Oh yeah.
They're pulling them over. They're not blaming themselves about they got pulled over, they were drunk. They're blaming the cop for pulling them over.
Yeah, if you don't level up at some point,
it's brutal, dude. It's brutal.
Own your own junk, bro. I mean, you got.
But my thing. About my 4 reasons to be in AA is. Did you ever hear this? All right, people go to AA for 4 reasons. 1, they got problems with the law. 2, they got problems with their family. 3, they got problems with the work. It might be a blend of 1, 2, 3, or 4, they actually want to get well.
Yeah.
And I hope that if you're there for 1 through 3, at some point sitting there, you understand what you did, and it gets to 4 where your life is messed up and you want to get sober. But how many people have you? I've done it, and how many people have gone and gotten sober to get the heat off in a part of their life, and the heat's off, and we go back to the exact same shit we were doing.
Yeah, I know. I wrote.
You know why you can get away with it? You know why you got away with it? I got away with it. My team got friends with you because you're good workers.
Yeah.
And as long as you're performing at work and bringing home a paycheck, it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's not okay.
Yeah, I definitely could minimize, justify, rationalize.
Of course.
Just about anything for a long.
Yeah.
I mean, I could totally convince myself that everything was fine. And in reality, my life was in shambles, But,
and then we hang around with people who are doing worse things. So you're like saying, I'm not that bad.
I'm not that bad. Yeah. Yeah, I did that.
Remember Randy, the motorcycle guy, wanted to be the motorcycle gang, but he had no motorcycle?
Oh, no motorcycle. Always had
He used to hang out at Rosie's with all the bikers.
Yeah. Well, I was in that little group for a while.
Yeah.
When I was there. Yeah. But, yeah. So anyhow, so I got through.
You're in jail. You hit your other bottom.
I hit my, that was my lowest point.
Okay.
That was kind of like a turning point for me. I knew that there was another purpose, but I got in there and, I got to the point where I just got down on my hands and knees and I started bawling my eyes out, man.
Let it out.
And I was
let it out.
I was like, I can't live like this anymore. I can't live like this anymore. And I cried out to God. And I said, I'd rather die than go on one more day like this. I can't even comprehend that my life has come to where I'm at, And at that point, I had this like I had been visiting, talking to the chaplains. I read the Bible and stuff like that when I was in there, and I finally got down on my hands and knees, and I asked the Lord. I said, "Man, if you're real, man, just show yourself to me. Just show you, because I'll be honest with you, I look all over my life, and I don't see you across the pages of my life at all. Little did I realize, but I realized in full now that He was protecting me all that time. And I just was at my lowest of lows, and I bawled my eyes out, and all of a sudden I had this feeling come over me that everything was going to be okay.
And let it all go.
All of a sudden I felt this presence just like come over me, and it was an amazing, like it's like feeling like the harshest reality that you can possibly be in. And then all of a sudden, having something come over you where you're sitting there at perfect peace. It's unexplainable. But that's exactly what happened to me when I was in there. You know, I had a vision that, you know, I had a vision while I was in there, and it was a very spiritual experience for me. You know, I was in the hole in Lancaster County Prison. I was just in jail. I was in the jail under the jail. What happened was,
what did you do to get into the hole?
I was on work release, down in work release.
You were on a chain gang?
No, but I was in work release, and then I had there was guys that was my cellmate. He was working at Mannheim Auto Auction.
Oh, that's a cool place.
They'd let him to go out there and work at the auto auction. So he smuggled chewing tobacco back in. So I was actually, I was working in a warden's office. I was like chaplain's. I was like, you know, a really good model prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
So they had me working in the kitchen on detail and as a trustee in the prison and all that stuff. So this guy brings back chewing tobacco, and while I'm at work, they tossed the cell. And they found the chewing tobacco. So not one person goes to the hole, both of you go. And I didn't.
Did you beat his ass?
Oh, I mean, no. I mean, basically, you're separate. So not only was, you know, things bad, but now I'm like thrown in the dungeon. You know, I thought.
So you didn't get any good commissary down there?
No. As a matter of fact,
ramen and tuna fish.
Any down there? No, it's bad. I mean, they put you in a jumpsuit, and you got to sit in there, and they handcuff you and shackle you, and you're sleeping on a steel rack, and you know, and that's when I had that awakening. You know, that's when I had that incredible experience. You know, that. You know, I'm in the worst place and the lowest place of my life. I mean, if anything is worse, it's got to be hell, you know. And he kind of like met me right there. He met me right there. And, you know, after that, I started like 2 weeks after I was down there. I was supposed to be down there for a month, but for some reason, you know, I kept praying, and I kept, you know, asking God, you know, please do something with my life. And then they put me back in population for the last month that I was there. So after I got out of there,
hopefully you didn't have a roommate, a cellmate at that point.
No, they didn't. No,
What happened to the jackass that got you busted?
I don't know. They put him on a different block because they knew I wasn't going to it, and they knew there was going to be
question. Did you meet anybody interesting in jail?
Oh man, I'm telling you what, there's like interesting, you know, they made me feel good about myself.
That's good.
You know, you hear some of the most bizarre degradation in there that you can possibly think of.
I remember as part of my, you know, I've done all the service stuff, chaired meetings, went to the jails. My sponsor encouraged me to go to the jails, and I did it for a while. I'm like, this is a waste of time. All these people are going to AA meetings at jail just to get out of what they're supposed to be doing.
Oh yeah.
Nobody gave a shit.
No, yeah. I mean, bottom line is a lot of people go in there to make new connections for the drug dealers that they're going to go back out on the street and hook up with after they get out.
So were drugs a big thing in your jail?
Well,
or not really.
I mean,
what level of security? Minimum security? Medium?
What's that?
What level of security was your prison? Medium, low?
Yeah, medium. I mean, I was on low security because I was a trustee and all that.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah. Basically, a lot of people.
So you get done. Who got you out of jail? Who picked you up from jail?
Okay, so here's what happened to me. Okay, the last 3 months that I was there, I had a lot of chaplains coming to see me because they knew that I had, you know, I had started really opening up and I was going through this spiritual experience or whatever you want to call it. And I had this one chaplain, his name was Bud Rhoda, and he came up to me and he said, you know, Rob, he says, I've been watching you. He said, and you know, he says, you're one of the guys that you don't really, you shouldn't be here. He said, you know, you have a lot.
Saw what I saw when you came to work for me.
Yeah. He said, you know, you're the kind of guy, he says, it doesn't make sense to me. Why they even have you in here? he said, I'll tell you what, he says, I think that you've come a long way, and you may be ready for a change in your life. He says, I have this place called the Potter's House. And he said, I'd like for you to try to go back to go to the Potter's House ministry and maybe begin, a new life and start out fresh and maybe you'll be around some people that can give you some hope. So I was like, what would I go back to if I went back to E-Town? I go back to a roofing company with a bunch of people that just like to drink all the time, So I agreed to go to the Potter's House. I filled out the application, I got accepted, and I agreed to go to the Potter's House. So he picks me up on a cold, wintry day in March 2005. And takes me to the Potter's House. And I was there for like 7 months whenever I called you again. And I said, I'm going to come back, I'd like to come back down.
So you drank between 05 and 2012?
05 and 2012. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
When I came back down to Virginia, I was doing
after the Potter's House.
Yeah, after the first 7 months in the Potter's House. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know this part of it.
Okay. Well, that's when I came back down to Virginia, and I was doing well when we lived up there, right off the SEAL base there.
Yep. Yeah, I got you.
I was doing well there for a little while, and then Randy came down, who was my friend from up in Pennsylvania. When he came down, we were old friends. And hanging out with Randy, we just started drinking again occasionally, and it got out of hand real quick. But then there toward the end, I started drinking real heavy again, and I it really scared me because it was like I could see my life is going to spiral out of control again. I need to do something about it. So I went. My mom had developed dementia then, and that's when I said, I came to you and I said, John, I just got to go back home. My mom's not well; she's going to die. If she's going to die,
I encouraged it.
So, and you never judged me, brother. I mean, you never judged me.
Not my style with good people.
Yeah. Well, you never judged me. So I came back to, I packed up my stuff and came back to Pennsylvania. And
your legal troubles were behind you by then?
Yeah, my legal trouble. I mean, I'm off parole, and I had that blow thing in my truck for a little while, but but then I came back and I got past that. I got my life together, and I started up a roofing thing back up here again. And my mom went back in 2009. My mom passed away in 2011. I had actually taken care of my mom for the last 2 years of her life. I lived up in Elizabethtown. And then when my mom passed away, I had been working doing roofing for a business called Top of the Line Roofing, a subcontracting for them. And I ended up cold, wintry day over in Hanover, Pennsylvania. I was 2 stories up, but there was some gravel there, and then at the bottom of the roof, and it was icy, and the ice and the shingles got brittle, and they slipped out from underneath me, and I hit my back on the roof and went down to the porch roof, and then rolled off the porch roof, and then I fell the rest of the way down 2 stories. I fell, actually, and I went to stand up, and I could hardly. I was like, man, I was excruciating pain. I was like, I'm done. I'm done, So then they called an ambulance, got me to the hospital, and I went in there, and they said that I had smashed the cushions between the vertebrae.
Oh, yeah.
3 of my vertebrae. And I was, for a year, I ended up having to go on disability for like a year and a half. And of course, I was taking painkillers, and I was doing all that, and I didn't find it hard to get addicted to them either. And that was something that, I never was really that much. Alcohol was always my thing. Alcohol was always my thing.
What was Ernie doing in the house? Crack?
Ernie? Oh, I don't even remember. Yeah, Ernie. Yeah, he was doing, he was doing crack. Yep.
Talk about a young kid that had he's probably dead now.
Yeah, probably is. Yeah, probably a lot of them. Probably Randy is too.
The break guy. I told you I saw him years ago. He died in the woods. What was his name? Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck.
Yeah, I think Vince is dead. Randy, but Ernie was a young kid.
Yeah. Sad.
It's really sad. I remember going through after you left and finally got rid of Ernie out of the house and fix it up, but like going through all the shit like Ernie left behind, and you could see like parts of his childhood that were normal.
Yeah.
And things and books from school, because he's a young guy. I'm like, God, what,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really sad because I'll be honest with you, John, when a person's young in their formative years and stuff like that, I don't think there's one of us that ever said, when I grow up, I want to be an alcoholic and drug addict,
No, but you know what? It took me a while to get there. I mean, I had a successful Navy career. I was a good athlete, and it took me. My spiral happened after I retired. Got worse. I made more money. I was working other government agency stuff after government contracting, and that's what accelerated it. But I had a good run that was until alcohol caught up with me. Ernie had no shot.
Yeah.
Unless he found some dynamic that. You pray, but you look back at it now. I was 39 or 40, and that kid was 21 or 22.
Sure.
Very smart and good shape, good looking kid until at the end his teeth were rotten out of his head. So it had to be whatever, crack or meth or whatever.
Yeah, crack or meth, something like that. But yeah. So anyhow,
hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
I wonder what happened to that K5, that Blazer that you had illegally. Did you just leave a parking beach?
I don't know. I don't know what happened
somewhere.
I don't remember what happened to that. No,
That's
I drove it back here to Pennsylvania. I think we sold it. Yeah.
I remember you had some connection where the guy would give you plates or inspection stickers and
dude, I was like, you know what? All Virginia Beach police I need to do is pull me over one time, and I'm going back to Pennsylvania.
But you didn't drive drunk. You drove in a safe times. Your tags are. I mean,
yeah. Well, I worked all the time.
Oh, you know who died? Remember Jim Hawley?
Yeah, Jim Hawley.
Yeah, he died.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
From what?
I think lung cancer or something. He smoked a lot.
Oh, wow.
Remember I bought that brand new 550 truck? I said, don't smoke in it.
Yep, I remember. Yep, I remember that. Yeah.
I learned a lot, my friend.
Amen to that. Yeah. Yeah. So
do you remember Vince stepping through the ceiling at that?
Yeah, I do. Well, I remember that was a nightmare because I was doing so good on that roof, and we watertighted that as best as I could. But it just came down cats and dogs that night, and it got underneath the flashing and just ruined the ceiling. And then, it wasn't unrepairable until Vince got in there.
Beautiful. So it was a beautiful ranch in a nice neighborhood, and there was a great client. We did their windows, we did their roofs. We could have fixed it. It wasn't a major thing.
No.
And I sent a guy up there, and I said, do not step through the roof.
Yeah. Yep.
A minute later.
Step right through.
A minute later.
That was one day I saw you very unhappy, John.
I mean, goddamn, Vince was something else. God bless. He's got to be passed by this. But back to so you're out of jail.
So
you came to see me. You work for me. You had to get your shit back on track.
The second time, and then I ended up going back home.
Richie's dead too.
Yeah, Richie. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Richie. Yeah,
his wife OD'd. Remember that?
Yeah, his wife
What a
OD'd.
crew! What a crew that
Yeah.
worked for me.
Oh my, yeah. Well, I didn't realize that they were into anything. I knew Richie was a weed smoker, but yeah, I didn't really know.
Yeah, well, yeah, his wife OD'd, and
Yeah. Sad. Yeah. But yeah, so anyhow, I come back to Pennsylvania, and I had made some really good friends in the faith community here in Lancaster County, down where my dad lived. And he had a property here along the Conestoga River. And while I was in prison, I was sitting there one day and just like praying, and it was like, God gave me this another vision, that he was going to bring forth a recovery center, a healing center on this property that my dad, I'm like, well, that's a really nice thought, but I didn't think it was ever possible. So anyhow, fast forward, I come back down to Virginia, come back home here. And I'm back home here, and I go through falling off the roof. I ended up getting hooked on painkillers. After a while, they wouldn't give me painkillers anymore. So the first time, I swore I never do it. I tried heroin. And I did that for about 6 months. And
were you snorting it or shooting it?
Snorting it. Yeah. And it was like, look, this is worse than anything I've ever done before.
I cannot imagine you on heroin, brother.
I can't imagine me on heroin either, because it didn't last long.
I'm pretending it never happened.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
No, my pleasure.
Yeah. So what I did was I went to a rehab, and from a rehab, they released me to a recovery house up in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. And, I went to Pottstown, and, some really, really freaky stuff happened up there. I mean, spiritually freaky stuff. I went to Pottstown, Pennsylvania. I was kind of like, just looking to find a job. I went up there, and my house manager was in construction. He hired me right away. I started running eventually I started running a business up there. I did that for maybe about a year that I was up there. And I was coming down from Pottstown, PA, down to Brownstown, PA, to this property where my dad lived, because he had gotten ill. And that was 2013. So he had gotten ill, and I was coming down here and running back and forth about 50 miles from Pottstown to Brownstown. So I was running down here to get him and take him up to the VA hospital, like a couple different times a month to make his appointments and stuff. So, while I was down here one time visiting, I was driving over to some place to go to a Home Depot or a Lowe's or something like that, pick up some materials to do some work on one of his cabins down here. And lo and behold, I go past this farm where the Potter's house is, where I was at. And I see the chaplain that helped me out in the prison. And I see the director, the CEO of the Potter's house, standing at the end of the driveway. So, my truck just hit, I wheeled on in there. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I got this like freaky deja vu, like I was supposed to be there for some reason. So anyhow, I reconnected with these guys, and they gave me a call, and they asked me if I'd come in and to a breakfast and tell my story. And so I did. I came into breakfast and told my story, and then I started volunteering there. And I was living up in Pottstown and coming down and taking care of my dad on the weekends. Mm-hmm. So as I was coming down here, it was like I didn't even advertise down in this area. But I ended up going to a recovery club down here, and I ended up getting more work down here than I was getting in Pottstown. And I didn't even advertise. So it was like, okay, something tells me, that I'm being led back here for some reason. Mm-hmm. So I ended up getting a 32-foot camper, and I put it down in the woods at my dad's property. and I ended up moving into camper. So I was living like living like Jeremiah Johnson back in the woods, and, and going to work every day. And my kids were growing up, and they had graduated school. And my oldest son, Jacob, he had gone off to college. He went to Liberty University down in Lynchburg. Yeah. And he ended up graduating. He got his bachelor's in psychology and minor in business, and now he stayed, and he's got his master's in psychology. So he's a licensed psychologist in the state of Virginia, which is pretty cool. My youngest
coming down with you tonight. Who's coming with you tonight?
Joshua. That's my middle son. That's the one that went into the trades just like me. He works for a commercial roofing outfit. And then my youngest son, Jonathan, he is the youth director at Cornerstone Youth Center up in Elizabethtown. And he helps young kids that are coming out of broken families. Go figure, right? And and Jacob got into psychology because he wanted to help kids that are coming out of broken families. So I mean, and people that are struggling with addiction because of what he saw me go through. And so anyhow, I come back here and I start establishing this relationship with Lloyd Hoover, the executive director of the Potter's House, and with Bud Rhoda, who was the chaplain that took me there a couple of years before that. And, we started having pig roast down here at this property at the Potter's House. I'm volunteering there. I'm hiring guys out of the Potter's House. I'm giving them jobs so they can pay their program fees and all of that. And, it was good for them, good for me. I got workers, they got their program fees and all that. So, for about 3 years, from 2013 to 2016, I had been working with the Potter's House on a level where in 2015 they finally asked me if I would come on board with them at staff because they saw I was so good with the students. Because I had been through, and I was in recovery, and I had been through what I'd been through, and so we were having pig roast down here, and they asked me to come on the board of directors of the Potter's House because I had the business at that point. So I came on the board of directors of the Potter's House, and here I got pastors, ministers. I have some very, very influential business people, and here you got Rob, who just got out of jail a couple of years ago, feeling like a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. But I knew that I was there for a reason. So fast forward another year, in 2016, my dad gets really, really sick. So he's operating on 10% of his heart and like 15% of his kidneys. So if they operate on his kidneys, his heart will fail. If they operate on his heart, his kidneys will fail. So that was the end. So what happens is my dad passes away in February 2016. And I inherit this property down along the Conestoga River. And all of a sudden, it's like this big jigsaw puzzle in the sky starts coming together. I'm like, oh my God, that's what you've been doing with my life. You've been preparing me for this all along. So I go into this board of directors meeting, and I'm talking to all these very influential businessmen and clergy in our community. And I said, back in 2004, I had a vision that God was going to turn this place into a recovery center, a healing center. And I thought, we've been having pig roast down here, and you can just tell this place is beautiful along Conestoga River. It's just a beautiful setting for a recovery center. And I thought they're either going to laugh me out of here or they're going to buy into it. So this one guy, John Wagner, who's a very, very influential bridge builder. He knows a lot of, senators, congressmen, people like that. And he says, let me talk to my consultant. So, about three months later, we have another board meeting, and we go in there. and they said, hey, Rob, would you take control of the project if we did it? I said, do you realize how much money it would cost to do this? And so we had a consultant come in, and this consultant went over with me, and I came in, and I had several Amish contractors come in, and these guys are really, talk about craftsmen. You want to talk about work ethic, man?
I bet.
What? Yeah. But these guys came in, and we told them what we wanted to do, and I said, let's get prices on these houses. So we talked to an architect. We had him design 3 different houses. We came up with a ballpark figure of what it would cost to build this facility. And then we sat down with the consultant, and the consultant started a capital campaign, and we needed $1.5 million to build this project. So the consultant put out a 5-year capital campaign plan, and we were having all of us hit the bricks. All of us went out and talked to all the business people we knew. We went out and talked to the church, but it was like God had his hand on this, because we had favor with the township. We went to the township, and they embraced this project. They said, it was during the opioid crisis here when it was hitting hard, and there was people dropping left and right. It's still going on, but so the whole community came alongside of us in this project, and and in 16 months' time, we had raised $750,000, and we had all the approvals done to start the first house. So I had to come in here with a chainsaw and knock down 49 trees, about 80 to 100 foot high trees. And this place looked like Hurricane Katrina came through here when we first started out. And that's where I got my rotator cuff tears and all that stuff. But I logged this place out, and we had a big trackhoe come in here, and it was picking up the old cabins that my dad had and dropping them into a trailer and hauling stuff out of here. And then we came up with a land development plan. We got it all approved, and lo and behold, it was just like this big jigsaw puzzle came together, and we had the whole community come alongside of us. We ended up raising the whole $2 million, and we built Stillwater's Recovery Center. And we've been open since 2020. And since then, in this entire process, I became a licensed ordained minister.
And then when did you write the books? You fit some books in there too.
Okay. So 2020, A Raptured Heart. A Raptured Heart is my first book. I sent you a copy of that.
Yes.
And you're in it, as a matter of fact.
I know. Thank you very much. Very kind. I think you give me too much credit for your success.
Yeah, no. It was just, hey, man, it was a turnaround point, and I had somebody like you who meant a lot to me, for you just to believe in me at a time where I didn't believe in myself anymore,
Easy to do.
So anyhow, so I wrote the book in 2021. And it was the whole story behind the Stillwater's Recovery Center. And it was my life story, my autobiography, but it's what God did with it, Mm-hmm. And it's how he used the recovery community, how he used the church community, the business community, and it was like, look, how do I know that God, why do I give God all this credit? Well, I'll tell you why. Because this was not my plan for my life, brother. This was not my plan for my life. But everything fell in place exactly the way it was supposed to, And now I'm the director of discipleship. My wife Beth and I live here. I met Beth in 2014. We got engaged in 2015. We got married a year before my dad died. And Beth is a wonderful Wonderful. She's not one of us. She's very, very
Neither is my wife,
bubbly,
Virginia.
bubbly
She's a
Beth
normal
is what they
person.
call her. Yeah, bubbly Beth is what they call her. She's just like a breath of fresh air, man. She's a very spirit-filled woman. She loves the Lord. She has a real compassion to work with people and broken people. And her and we're a real dynamic team. And she's got a lot of skills. So she works for a business consulting tax firm, and she's very, very, very good at computer design graphics. She did the graphics for both my books covers, and she helps me out in a lot of that. She helps me out, and when I do sermons and stuff like that, helps me out with setting up the bullet points and stuff like that. So she's really good at. She does a lot for me that I couldn't do without her. Let's put it that way. And
go ahead. I'm sorry,
yeah,
Ron.
but she has a lot of compassion for working with broken people, and both of us do. So like her and I are like mom and pop here, it's the Waters Recovery Center. And, it's just amazing. We're operating right now at max capacity. We have actually the Potter's House ministry has tripled in size since I came on board. We have a capacity for 16 students here at the men's program at Stillwater's Recovery Center in 2 different settings. We have a total of 6 houses, 5 men's houses and 1 woman's house. And we have 3 phases to our program. We have intensive phase 1, which is at the recovery center here that we built. And they don't work during the first 3 months. We get them plugged into meetings, AA meetings. They have to have a sponsor. They have to have, we get them plugged in at a church, and they have to be active in the church. So they have to have a mentor within the first 30, 45 days, and a sponsor. They have to be meeting with them regularly, and we check with them. We have recovery classes. We have a lot of Christian application classes. We have a lot of spiritual transformation. I have a real passion for transformational ministry because I went through it. It happened to me. It happened to me. My life is better than anything that I could have ever imagined at this point, John. And I am so, so grateful, for everybody that's been part of that along the way. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I was really pretty motivated back then, but when I worked with you, you kind of took me to a different level. I didn't have the knowledge and the skill to become a project manager on a land development, plan like
Well,
this.
as a SEAL and a leader amongst men, we've all, because when you're a SEAL, you will be in charge of some things, and
Yeah.
you learn a lot about people, and you learn about what you could actually get out of them, the good leaders. And I had great mentors about how do you get the most out of somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
The blanket statement, you got to treat everybody the same. It's not true. Everybody's got to be held to the same bandwidth with when they screw something up. But the thing is, you can't treat everybody just like sobriety. There's no cookie cutter sobriety program. It's individual. You could suggest things. You could tell them how I did it or you did it, and maybe they'll do it. Maybe they won't. Could we talk about something? And if you don't want to talk about how you got through your child's death, because I know we communicated and that was going on, and I because it's incredible strength that you stayed sober through this, and I know how much you loved your daughter.
Yeah. I be honest with you, I think when you have gone through so much in your life, and when God develops an inner strength in you, that you don't get racked. When something like, I think in AA in general, a lot of us have been through so much that like tragedies, are like, okay, what am I going to do? If I pick up a drink over her passing, is that going to honor her passing?
No.
So, okay. So since my daughter died, and she died of a meth overdose.
Yeah, I know.
I could have let that devastate me, or I could have turned it into fuel to fan the flame of passion to help other people not have to ever go through the same thing. And that's what I chose to do.
And you did well.
I chose to use that as inspiration to meet other people at their point. I don't ever want any other parent to ever have to go through that. You know, I don't want.
So she did not pass in vain.
No.
Because you took this and turned it into as positive as you can, which is remarkable to look at from what you've endured, especially talking about sitting in the jail cell. How the hell did I get here?
Yeah.
I mean, what a dynamic change.
Yeah.
In perspective in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, all I can say is like something happened on the road to Damascus, brother.
Yeah, it's happening this Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It was on his way this week, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
He's on his way.
Well, you know, I mean, in hindsight, you know, AA has played a really big part in my life. It's kind of like my first sponsor up here in Pennsylvania when I came back here. My first sponsor was a retired Marine, if there is such a thing. And
now, once you're in, you're in, and that's a cult too, like the SEALs.
Yeah, and I remember, you know why it is that I gravitate toward military personnel. I don't know why.
Yeah. Why? Because your father was in the military and your brother was. Come on, man.
I mean, dude, it's like I can jive with military people better than I can get along with people that are civilians, because I just see some of this real stupid stuff.
Do you still make a lot of lists?
What's that?
Do you still write a lot of lists?
Oh, dude, I got pens.
You're the list
pads
freak.
On me all the time. I got pens and pads on me all the time. Yeah, now it's like, you know, I went from being a remodeler of houses to being a remodeler of lives, and this is much more.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's a great tagline.
Yeah, this is much more gratifying to me. I love to see lives being transformed and the light coming on and hope and being reborn, and I love to see it's a redemptive work to me, John. When I see a father come back into his children's lives and for him to become responsible, that's redemptive to me.
We just had a guy, you know, in SEALs and Recovery, pick a chip up in SEALs Recovery, and he just picked up 4 years yesterday.
Yeah.
And I watched him reemerge in life, and I was his sponsor, and I call him, he was a rookie of the year, then he was the MVP.
Yeah.
Now he had to pass the torch. We got some good guys in recovery. But the thing is like, he's thanking me for everything. I said, all I did is make some suggestions, man, and tell you how I did it. You did the work.
Yeah.
You did what was required. You did everything required to get your kid back in your life, you know, back together. Yeah. And all I ask is, when you're in a position to do it, you do it for somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for real. You know, you can't keep it unless you give it away. I mean, that's like,
that's one of the things.
Kind of a paradox, but service is essential. And I have adopted a life of service, which is it's imperative, and it's conducive to my own personal growth.
Yeah,
helping other people. When I see marriages restored and fathers becoming responsible and active members of society, and you know, productive members of society after being out there for so long, you know, it's vindication for me. You know, it's like, it makes it all worthwhile, because I get a piece of myself back.
Of course.
You know, when I see something, you know, even though it never, you know, my first marriage failed, it never came back together for me. My kids think I'm native in peanut butter and jelly now. I mean, they think they really admire me. They call me all the time we have a really great relationship. I go down to visit Jacob, and I got 4 grandkids now, Joseph, Eli, Liam, and Emmett. And, I got some beautiful grandkids. Yep.
You know, we'll wrap it up here in a minute, but I know from the first time I met you how important family was to you.
Yeah.
And that was something always on your mind, to get back to that. And that's no lie. That's why it was easy to believe in you, because you know what? People have to believe in something. These other guys that have, you don't know anything about them. They're lying about everything. I'm like, I was in the Navy for 20 years. I know what a liar looks like. I know when people are shirking duty or skylarking. But the thing is, it's like, it was very easy to see that there was a higher calling, that you always loved your family, and there was a real generous, kind man in the frame that you were living in. And
well, that's gotten to emerge, John, and I'm very grateful for that. That I've come into a season of fulfillment and peace in my life that I've never known before. And that's
so. What's next?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
I don't know. I think the recovery houses, you're coming tonight, so I think there's a need for them to be done correctly.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a need for them for men to get in these things and elevate themselves.
Yeah.
Not just go through the motions to pay their fee monthly.
Yeah.
What I see is people running them, and no disrespect to them, they're providing something for somebody who needs a halfway house or a potter's house or a recovery house, but that's all they're doing. They're not challenging these people.
Yeah, John. Here's where recovery house and holistic approach to recovery really hit a dividing wall. They didn't get messed up in 28 days, and they're not going to unpack.
No, they're not.
28 days.
No,
and you can. You get people that just, first come into recovery and stuff like that, or come out of rehab and stuff like that, and they tell them to go to AA, but they don't give them the fundamentals that they need to succeed. And that's why I think holistic programs are much more important. That's why we're 9-month program. We have time for you to get grounded in recovery, get a sponsor. We get time to get you grounded in a church and active in service. And we give them time before they go back to work. And then we get them jobs. We have the whole community of people that want to come around us, and we would get them jobs. We have financial management classes, budget classes. So the guys, we got 50-year-old guys in here, 48-year-old guys come in here. They've never had a checking account. How do you do that? How do you get through life like that?
Dude, you've seen it in construction. They crawl around with no license. They get paid in cash. They stay away from their child support payments. You've seen it in construction.
I remember how tough it was to get through that. But the bottom line,
you knew the difference. You had it. You had a whole life of business and everything. You had to do what you had to do for a short period of time to get to where these people have lived their whole life. I never knew coming out of the military. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This life exists.
Yeah. It's like what have you been doing for your entire life?
They've been doing that.
Yeah. I'm like, you really need, people need something holistic, and they need something to believe in them. I am for them.
That's where I think some of these things, the service that people are providing it is not comprehensive. It's a solution for housing.
Yeah. And that's it. Unless you offer, to be a cut above, in this, be on the cutting edge of developmental life change, life altering ministry. I mean, really making an impact, which is what I think that we're doing. You have to heal the root issues that cause the addiction, a lot of the pain and the trauma and everything that people go through. But you also have to have a structured plan of development that's why we have 3 phases. When we see a student get to a certain point where, he's mastered this, then you take him to another level, and you take him to another level.
Who developed your curriculum?
I did.
Good.
Me and another guy named Joel Jakubowski, who was the director of Teen Challenge for I guess 10 years. And he actually came to work for us for a little while. Ex-Navy guy.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, you want to plug anything else? Your books, your recovery house, Potters? Just let me know.
Yeah.
Plug it, man.
Well, I have 2 books. Hold on a second. Okay. First of all, I got my book, A Raptured Heart.
Yep, I see it.
That's my autobiography.
Yep.
That's the story behind the Still Waters Recovery Center. That's the entire journey. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, and John, I don't have a problem telling my story because I'm an open book.
I know you don't.
There he is. I'm an open book.
No pun intended.
Yeah, for real. And then I have The Believer's Warfare. And this is a book that's designed to tear down strongholds in the way that we think and to replace them with positive affirmations and biblical scriptural truths. And that, I'm not going to get preachy, but it does say, don't conform to the pattern of this world any longer, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
I agree. That's not preaching. That's a
kinda
great life lesson.
When I first went to AA, I was like, what are you doing hanging out with those people? They're going to brainwash you. I said, brother, my brain needed washed.
Oh, me too.
I mean, big time.
Back to as long as you're taking what you need, you put yourself around and make great. I got my sponsor. You'll learn more about my story when I see it.
Yeah.
Rob's coming down to help me with my roof tonight. God bless him and his son. I don't trust anybody, but him. Yeah. He is the man.
The roof doctor.
But I get very frustrated with our civilian meetings, and my sponsor, who he says to me, "You're not coming to these meetings for you. You're sober. You're not going to drink. You're coming here to help somebody else that might want to hear what you have to say." Right. And that's the truth, because that's just the way it is. Very interesting. And I've said this before. I had my own one sponsor for 9.5 years, convicted felon, went to jail for manslaughter. That's the guy I needed.
Yeah.
That's the guy who's not going to put up with any shit from me.
Yeah.
He died sober of pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
Serene, didn't want to be a test monkey, drank coffee on my deck. He passed peacefully, not on my deck, but in a hospital. But prior to that, he picked my sponsor for me. My next one.
Yeah.
He knew what I needed.
Yeah.
And you'll meet him. Charlie's was a combat Marine vet, great guy, musician, but he keeps me straight, man. He's 80-something years old and puts up with none of my BS, tells me what time it is, tells me no matter what's going on, be kind to myself first. Yeah. God's forgave you. Stop beating yourself up. All things we should be listening to.
That's right. That's right. And I'll tell you what,
God can forgive us, but it's hard forgiving ourselves.
Yeah. You're spot on there, brother. Yeah, you're spot on there. Yeah. I think that was probably my biggest hurdle was, I knew that God forgave me, but man, going sifting through that trash and actually coming to a point where it was like, okay, I know I'm forgiven for it. I know I'm forgiven for it.
The shame is what kills me.
In the path of redemption, but
the shame is what kills. The shame kills me. Yeah. Guilt is something else. Guilt is you're guilty. You go to jail for it. You did time. I've had to do my own version of time and sort my shit out, and it's absolved. But the shame part of our story, man, I mean, it's hard. Yeah. When you get the secret sauce to alleviate shame, please send me a bottle.
Well, guilt says I made a mistake. Shame says I am a mistake. And
that's powerful.
There's a big difference because shame becomes an identity. And when you have a shame-based identity, it becomes your address. And whenever it becomes your address, that's when you're really being held captive.
It's hard because we're people of deep
conviction.
Character. I mean, here's the deal, and we'll wrap it up in a second. I don't know how people can sit in AA and just pretend like nothing in their life happened, because it's okay that, and I've said this before, it's okay. I ran a dog over on the way here. I beat my kid before that, and you know what? I don't pay any of my bills, but you know what? As long as I'm sober, it's cool.
Yeah, dude, that's
not enough for me. The sober part, not drinking, is easy. The rest of the stuff with the shame is the hard for me, because I care about it. I care about it so much for my wife, my children, and my good friends like you. Yeah. It is just, it's hard. I wish I could be more like them.
Yeah.
No, I don't. But
Well, yeah, so nonchalant about life. I mean, bottom line is, it usually takes about 2 years to dry up, 5 years to sober up, and a lifetime to grow up, brother.
yeah. Right.
Amen.
All right, man. I love you.
All right. Love you too, brother.
I can't wait to see you. Thanks a lot for everything.
I'm really looking forward to it, man.